One Gospel, version 3, part 7. Jesus avoids the public more, preparing for his passion. Taken from the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Jesus heals the daughter of a woman in Tyre. And from there Jesus arose and went away and withdrew into the region of Tyre and Sidon, and entered into the house. He wanted no one to know, but he could not be hidden. For a woman of Canaan, whose little daughter had an unclean spirit, heard concerning him, and she had came forth from that region and fell at his feet and cried out to him. The woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by race. She asked him that he would cast out the demon out of her daughter, saying, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is miserably demon-possessed." And he did not say a word to her. His disciples came and asked him, "Send her away, because she cries behind us." He answered, "I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." She came and bowed to him, saying, "Lord, help me." Jesus said to her, "Let the children be filled first, for it is not good to take the children's bread and to throw it to the little dogs." She said to him, "Truly, Lord, but the little dogs under the table eat from the children's crumbs, which fall from their Lord's table." Then Jesus said to her, "O woman, your faith is great. Because of this word, go away. Let it be to you even as you want. The demon has gone forth out of your daughter." Her daughter was healed from that hour. When she had gone away to her house, she found the demon had gone forth, and the daughter laying on the couch. Jesus heals a deaf man in the Decapolis. Again Jesus, departing from that place, the region of Tyre and Sidon, he came near to the Sea of Galilee, through the middle of the region of Decapolis. And they brought to him one who was deaf and had a speech impediment. And they called on him to put his hand on him. He took him aside from the multitude. He put his fingers into his ears, and he spit and touched his tongue. Looking up to heaven, he sighed and said to him, "Ephphatha," that is, "be opened." Immediately his ears were opened, and the bond of his tongue was loosed, and he spoke plainly. He ordered them that they should tell no one. But the more he ordered them, the more abundantly they proclaimed it. And they were astonished beyond measure, saying, "He has done all things well. He makes both the deaf to hear and the mute to speak." Jesus feeds the 4,000 on a mountain. In those days he went up to the mountain and sat down there. The multitudes, being very great, came to him, having with them the lame, blind, mute, maimed, and many others. They set them down at Jesus' feet, and he healed them. So the multitude marveled when they saw the mute speaking, the maimed whole, the lame walking, and the blind seeing. And they glorified the God of Israel, but had nothing to eat. Jesus called his disciples to him and said to them, "I have compassion on the multitude, because they have now continued with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. If I send them away fasting to their houses, they will faint on the way, for some of them came from afar. I will not." His disciples answered him, "From where could we get so many loaves here in a wilderness, to fill so great a multitude with bread?" Jesus asked them, "How many loaves do you have?" They said, 7, and a few little fish. He commanded the multitudes to sit down on the ground. And he took the 7 loaves and gave thanks. He broke and gave them to his disciples to set before them. The disciples set them before the multitude. And they had a few small fish. He blessed them and told them to also set them before them. And they all ate and were filled. They took up 7 full baskets of the broken pieces that were left over. Those who ate were about 4,000 men, beside women and children. And he sent away the multitudes. Immediately he went into the boat with his disciples and came to the region of Dalmanutha and Magdala. Jesus' only sign will be the sign of Jonah. The Pharisees and Sadducees came forth and began to question him, seeking from him to show them a sign from the heaven, testing him. He sighed deeply in his spirit. He said to them, "When it is evening, you say, 'Fair weather, for the heaven is red,' and in the morning, 'Foul weather today, for the heaven is red and gloomy.' Hypocrites! You know how to discern the appearance of the heavens, but the signs of the times you cannot. Why does this generation seek for a sign? A wicked and adulterous generation seeks for a sign. Truly I say to you, no sign shall be given to this generation, except the sign of Jonah the prophet." And he left them and got into the boat again. He departed to the other side. Jesus teaches his disciples while crossing the sea. When his disciples had come to the other side, they had forgotten to take loaves, and except for 1 loaf, they had nothing with them in the boat. Jesus ordered them, saying to them, "Take heed and beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees, and the yeast of Herod." They reasoned with one another among themselves, saying, "Because we have taken no loaves." Jesus, knowing this, said to them, "You have little faith. Why do you reason among yourselves because you have brought no loaves? Do you not yet perceive nor understand? Is your heart still hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? And having ears, do you not hear? Do you not remember when I broke the 5 loaves among the 5,000? And how many baskets full of broken pieces did you take up?" They said to him, 12. "And when I broke the 7 loaves among the 4,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you take up?" They said, 7. He said to them, "How do you not understand that I did not speak to you concerning loaves, that you should beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees?" Then they understood that he did not say to beware of the yeast of loaves, but the teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Jesus heals a blind man in Bethsaida. He came to Bethsaida. They brought a blind man to him and called on him to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the village. When he had spit on his eyes and put his hands on him, he asked him if he saw anything. He looked up and said, "I see men like trees walking." After that he put his hands on his eyes again and made him look up. And he was restored, and saw everyone clearly. He sent him away to his house, saying, "Neither go into the village, nor tell anyone in the village." Jesus teaches about who he really is. Jesus and his disciples went forth into the region of the villages of Caesarea Philippi. It came to pass, as he was alone praying, his disciples joined him. And by the road he asked his disciples, "Who do the multitudes say that I, the Son of Man, am?" They answered, "Some say John the Baptist, and others say Elijah, and others say Jeremiah, or that one of the ancient prophets has risen again." He said to them, "And you, who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered him, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, because flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in the heavens. And I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my assembly, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against her. And I will give to you the keys of the kingdom of the heavens. Whatever you shall bind on the earth shall be bound in the heavens, and whatever you shall loose on the earth shall be loosed in the heavens. And then he rebuked and ordered his disciples that they should tell this to no one about him, that he was Jesus the Messiah. From that time, Jesus began to teach his disciples that the Son of Man must go to Jerusalem, suffer many things, be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the Torah teachers, be killed, and to rise the third day or after 3 days. He spoke that word openly, saying, "The Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected by the elders and chief priests and Torah teachers, and be killed and be raised the third day." And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, "May it be far from you, Lord. This shall not happen to you." And when he turned around and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, because you are not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men." When he had called the multitude to him with his disciples, then Jesus said to all of them, "If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself, and take up his cross daily, and follow me. For whoever desires to save his soul will lose it, and whoever loses his soul for my sake and the gospel's, he shall find and save it. For what is a man profited if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul or himself? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man is about to come. Whoever will be ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man shall also be ashamed of him when he comes in his glory and the glory of his Father with his holy angels. And then he shall reward everyone according to his works." He said to them, "Truly I say to you, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom of God with power." The Transfiguration. It came to pass after 6 days, about 8 days after these words, that Jesus took Peter and James and John his brother with him, and brought them up to a high mountain apart by themselves. And he went up to the mountain to pray. And as he prayed, he was transformed before them. The appearance of his face was altered, shining like the sun. His clothes shone, becoming exceedingly white as light, like snow, such as no launderer on the earth can whiten them. And 2 men, Moses with Elijah, appeared in glory to them. They were talking with Jesus, and spoke of his departure, which he was about to fulfill at Jerusalem. But Peter and those with him were heavy with sleep. And when they were awake, they saw his glory, and the 2 men who stood with him. And it came to pass, as they departed from him, Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, let us make 3 tabernacles here, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah." For he did not know what to say, for they were greatly afraid. While he was still speaking these things, a bright cloud came and overshadowed them. And a voice came out of the cloud, saying, "This is my Son, the beloved, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him." When the disciples heard it, as they entered into the cloud, they fell on their faces and were exceedingly fearful. When the voices ceased, Jesus came near and touched them, and said, "Arise, do not be afraid." Suddenly, when they had lifted up their eyes and looked around, they saw only Jesus with themselves. As they came down from the mountain, Jesus ordered that they should tell no one the things they had seen until the Son of Man had risen from the dead, saying, "Tell no one about the vision until the Son of Man has risen from the dead." They kept silent and kept that word to themselves, telling no one in those days any of the things they had seen, in questioning together what the rising from the dead was. Jesus teaches John was Elijah. His disciples asked him, saying, "Why then do the Torah teachers say that Elijah must come first?" Jesus answered them, "Truly Elijah comes first and restores all things. And how is it written concerning the Son of Man that he must suffer many things and be treated with contempt? But I say to you that Elijah has indeed come already, and they did not know him, but did to him whatever they wished, as it is written of him. Likewise the Son of Man is also about to suffer by them." Then the disciples understood that he spoke to them concerning John the Baptist. Jesus heals an epileptic boy the next day. It came to pass on the next day, when they came down from the mountain to the disciples, he saw a great multitude around them, and the Torah teachers disputing with him. Immediately all the multitude, when they saw him, were amazed, and running to him, met and greeted him. He asked the Torah teachers, "What are you disputing with them?" A man from out of the multitude came to him, kneeling down to him, cried out and said, "Lord, Rabbi, I implore you, look and have mercy on my son, because he is my only begotten child, an epileptic, and suffers miserably. Look, I bring my son to you, who has a mute spirit. Wherever he seizes him, he tears through him, and he suddenly cries out, and it convulses him with foaming. And he gnashes his teeth and becomes rigid. He often falls into the fire and the water. It departs from him with great difficulty, bruising him. I brought him to your disciples, and I implored your disciples that they should cast him out, and they could not heal him." Jesus answered him and said, "O faithless and perverse generation, until when shall I be with you? And until when shall I bear with you? Bring your son here to me." And they brought him to him. When he saw him as he was still coming, immediately the demon spirit threw him down and convulsed him, and he fell on the ground, wallowing and foaming. He asked his father, "How long has this been happening to him?" He said, "From childhood, and often has cast him into fire and into water in order to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us." Jesus said to him, "If you can believe, all things are possible to the one who believes." Immediately the father of the child cried out and said with tears, "Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief." When Jesus saw that the multitude came running together, he rebuked the unclean demon spirit, saying to it, "Mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come forth out of him, and enter into him no more." And it cried and convulsed him greatly, and he came forth out of him, and he became like the dead, so that many said, "He is dead." Jesus took him by the hand, lifted him up, and he arose. And he gave him back to his father, and the child was healed from that hour. And they were all amazed at the greatness of God. While everyone marveled at all the things which Jesus did, he said to his disciples, "Let these words sink down into your ears, for the Son of Man shall be delivered into the hands of men." But they did not understand this saying, and it was hidden from them, so that they did not perceive it. And they were afraid to ask him concerning this saying. When he had come into the house, the disciples came to Jesus privately and said, "Why could we not cast him out?" Jesus said to them, "Because of your unbelief. For truly I say to you, If you have faith like a grain of mustard, you shall say to this mountain, Depart here to that place, and it shall depart, and nothing shall be impossible for you. But by nothing can this kind go out, except with prayer and fasting. Jesus prophesies about his passion while in Galilee. They departed from there and passed through Galilee, and he did not want anyone to know. While they were staying in Galilee, Jesus taught his disciples, saying to them, The Son of Man is about to be delivered into the hands of men, and they shall kill him, and after he is killed, the third day he shall rise. They were exceedingly sorrowful, and they did not understand the saying, for they were afraid to ask. Jesus pays the temple tax in Capernaum. When they had come to Capernaum, those who received the double drachma, half shekel, came to Peter and said, Does your rabbi not pay the double drachma, half shekel temple tax? He said, Yes. When he had come into the house, Jesus, anticipating his questions, said, What do you think, Simon? From whom do the kings of the earth take taxes on goods, or the census tax on people and property? From their sons or from the foreigners? Peter said to him, From foreigners. Jesus said to him, Then the sons are exempt, but so that we do not cause them to stumble, go to the sea, cast a hook, and take up the first fish that comes up. And when you have opened his mouth, you shall find a 4 drachma stater. Take that and give it to them for me and you. Jesus teaches his disciples in private in Capernaum. Then at that time there arose a deliberation among them as to which of them would be the greatest, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of the heavens? When he was in the house, the disciples came to him. Jesus, perceiving the deliberation of their heart, asked them, Why were you deliberating among yourselves on the road? And they were silent. For on the road they deliberated among themselves who would be the greatest. And he sat down and called the 12 and said to them, If anyone desires to be first, he shall be last of all and servant of all. Jesus called and took a little child to him and set him beside him in the middle of them. When he took him in his arms, he said to them, Truly I say to you, unless you turn around and become like little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of the heavens. Therefore whoever shall humble himself like this little child, he is the greatest in the kingdom of the heavens. And whoever shall receive one of these little children, such as this, in my name, receives me. And whoever shall receive me does not receive me, but him who sent me. For he who is least among all of you, he shall be great. John answered, Rabbi, we saw a certain one who does not follow us, casting out demons in your name. We forbade him because he does not follow with us. Jesus said to him, Do not forbid him, for there is no one who does a mighty work in my name who can quickly speak evil of me. For he who is not against us is for us. For whoever shall give you a cup of water to drink in my name, because you belong to Messiah, truly I say to you, he shall by no means lose his reward. Whoever will cause one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck, and he were cast into the depth of the sea. Woe to the world because of stumbling blocks, for stumbling blocks must come, but woe to that man through whom the stumbling block comes. If your hand causes you to stumble, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life maimed than to go away into Gehenna having 2 hands, into the unquenchable fire, where their worm does not die and the water is not quenched, or the fire is not quenched. Or if your foot causes you to stumble, cut it off and cast them from you. It is better for you to enter into life lame or maimed, rather than to be cast into Gehenna, having 2 hands or 2 feet, into the unquenchable everlasting fire, where their worm does not die, and the fire is not quenched. And if your eye causes you to stumble, pluck it out, and cast it out from you. It is better for you to enter into the life of the kingdom of God with 1 eye, rather than to be cast into the fire of Gehenna, having 2 eyes, where their worm does not die, and the fire is not quenched. For everyone shall be salted with fire, and every sacrifice shall be salted with salt. The salt is good, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how will you season it? Have salt in yourselves, and have peace one with another. Take heed that you do not despise one of these little ones. For I say to you, that their angels in the heavens always see the face of my Father, who is in the heavens. For the Son of Man has come to save that which was lost. What do you think? If a man has 100 sheep, and one of them is gone astray, does he not leave the 99 and go to the mountains, and seek that which is gone astray? And if it happens that he finds it, truly I say to you, he rejoices more over it than over the 99 that did not go astray. Even so, it is not the will of your Father who is in the heavens that one of these little ones should be destroyed. And if your brother shall sin against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he shall hear you, you have gained your brother. And if he will not, take 1 or 2 more with you, that by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. And if he refuses to hear them, speak to the assembly. And if he refuses to hear the assembly, let him be like a foreigner and a tax collector to you. Truly I say to you, whatever you bind on the earth will be bound in the heavens, and whatever you loose on the earth will be loosed in the heavens. Again I say to you that if 2 of you will agree on the earth concerning anything that they will ask, it shall happen for them by my Father who is in the heavens. For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I am there in the midst of them. Then Peter came to him and said, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Until 7 times? Jesus said to him, I do not say to you until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. Therefore the kingdom of the heavens is like a king, who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. And when he had begun to bring them together, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. And he had nothing to pay. But his Lord commanded that he be sold, and his wife and children and all that he had, and payment to be made. The servant then fell down and bowed down to him, saying, Lord, have patience with me, and I will pay you all. Then the Lord of that servant was moved with compassion, released him, and forgave him the debt. And that servant went forth and found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii. And he laid hold of him and took him by the throat, saying, Pay me what you owe. And his fellow servant fell down at his feet and called on him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will pay you all. And he would not, but he went away and cast him into prison until he should pay the debt. When his fellow servants saw what happened, they were exceedingly grieved, and came and explained to their Lord all that had happened. Then his Lord called him to himself and said to him, Wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you called upon me. Should you not have also had mercy on your fellow servant, even as I had mercy on you? And his Lord was angry and delivered him to the torturers, until he should pay all that was due to him. Likewise, my heavenly Father shall do to you also, if each one of you does not forgive his brother's trespasses from your hearts. And it came to pass, when Jesus had finished these words, he arose and departed from Galilee.